And welcome back to the United Nations, Fox News contributor. And we say hello to Ambassador John Bolton. Welcome back, sir.
Glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It's always my pleasure. All right. I want to start with something that was said today by Hillary Clinton. She was at some forum, and she was being asked about her time as Secretary of State, and she actually brought up Benghazi. This is cut 36. So let's give a listen to what she had to say.
You know, my biggest regret is what happened in Benghazi. It was a terrible tragedy. Losing 4 Americans, 2 diplomats, and now it's public, so I can say 2 CIA operatives. Losing an ambassador like Chris Stevens, who was one of our very best and had served in Libya and across the Middle East and spoke Arabic. And
what are your plans for 2000?
All right, that's another question. But anyway, the fact that he spoke Arabic, I mean, that's all basically she said. She didn't take any responsibility. She didn't go on and elaborate. So I guess she feels now if she speaks about it, then she could, in addition to saying it's old news because she could claim it was discussed before, now she could claim she discussed it and it's old news, I guess.
Well, if that works, then so much for the triumph of form over substance in American politics. I don't know what else she might have said in that interview, but I tell you, the fact here is that those deaths could have been avoided, that the policy that I guess we can call it the Obama-Clinton administration was following in Libya, in Benghazi specifically, and generally in the war on terror, I think led to this because they were unwilling or unable to acknowledge that, in fact, the terrorist threat had grown under Obama worldwide, and that so far from their campaign claim that al-Qaeda was on the run, General Motors is alive and Osama bin Laden is dead, the fact is, and Benghazi demonstrates that the terrorist threat was real and was growing. And their unwillingness to acknowledge what was actually happening in Libya for well over a year before the September the 11th attack led to that tragedy. So she can try it. I'm sure that's a tried and true focus group tested, polled response. And as I say, they may get away with it, but they shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, let me let you hear one more soundbite here before we get on to international affairs. And that is, he was speaking at a United States Conference of Mayors on Friday, and Homeland Security Secretary Johnson made a remark about the approximately 11 million people, that number fluctuates, who are in the country illegally. And here's what he had to say, cut 1. All right, maybe we're not going to hear what he had to say. No, it seems like we're having a problem with that. Okay, so I'll just tell you what he said. He said that they have basically earned the right to be citizens. An earned path to citizenship for those currently present in this country is a matter, in my view, of homeland security, to encourage people to come out from the shadows. It also is, frankly, in my judgment, a matter of who we are as Americans, to offer the opportunity to those who want to be citizens, who've earned the right to be citizens, who are present in this country. I don't know how you earn the right to be a citizen if you came here illegally, but you agree that it's a matter of homeland security to give citizenship to the illegals?
Absolutely not. And there is no way that you can say that anybody has earned the right to be a citizen unless they have followed our laws and lived here the prescribed amount of time, done what they're supposed to do. Now, I will say this. I'm a little squishy on this question of illegal immigration. I've been through this before in the Reagan administration with the 1986 bill, which I thought was something that Reagan had worked hard for and that we accepted as a compromise. But the notion that you just articulated from the Secretary of Homeland Security is a completely open borders policy, because if you just happen to get here and that earns you the right to be a citizen, then we don't have citizenship anymore. We might as well just forget about the borders entirely. And I think, honestly, that is what motivates some people in the Obama administration and some of their supporters. That's why I don't worry about a debate on immigration reform. Let's have the debate and we'll see who prevails.
All right, we're talking to Ambassador John Bolton here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And let me ask you also, there's a report today, growing evidence suggesting that the Israeli Air Force carried out a secret mission in Syria last night, targeting Russian-made missile launchers deployed by forces loyal to President Assad. And of course, Israel very secretive about their runs over the border, especially when it involves Syria or a nation state. So what do you think might have happened, and why would Israel have an interest in doing this?
Well, I think we've seen over the 3 years of the civil war in Syria a number of Israeli strikes, both in Syria and in Lebanon. And in virtually every case, they've been against deployed or suspected movements of offensive weapons, that is to say, weapons that could be used against Israel. And I think Israel is well within its rights to do that in preemptive self-defense. It also raises the question whether they're going after anti-aircraft systems like the famous S-300 or even more advanced anti-aircraft systems that we know the Russians have. They don't want to see them deployed in Syria or Lebanon. They also don't want to see them move to Iran at any point. So I think we're going to see this as a kind of very measured Israeli response. I think it's appropriate in their self-defense, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of that series. And then we'll see more if this conflict in Syria continues.
All right, let's talk about Iran. You mentioned Iran, of course, and there are those who have the opinion, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. But I got to tell you, it's almost unfathomable that you sit down and make such a controversial deal with a nation that every single day brings another remark from one of their leaders or their mullahs or the people who actually negotiated the treaty saying, we don't have any restrictions. We didn't agree to that. We're going to keep right on going. And then somebody reportedly said, we welcome a war. We crave a war with the United States. I mean, how on earth do you go forward in this process when every day that's what comes out of Iran?
Well, what's really ironic here is that this regime now is falling into the Ahmadinejad pattern, which is saying what they actually think, rather than the smiling face of deceit, which is what Hassan Rouhani came into office well practiced at carrying out. He did it as their chief nuclear negotiator 10 years ago, and that's what he did for the first 6-8 months of his administration. Now, they took us to the cleaners with this nuclear deal in Geneva in November. They know it, even if John Kerry and Barack Obama haven't figured it out yet, and some of them are just not capable of holding back. Objective reality tells us that they made very few minor, easily reversible concessions on their nuclear program, and they achieved a big win against the economic sanctions. They've cut a hole in the middle of the sanctions. They've scored a huge psychological victory, and we're going to come to regret this deal. I've got a piece in National Review this week that says if the Geneva deal doesn't quite come up to the standards of Munich 1938, it's a close second.
Do you believe that that Harry Reid is going to have to, and I don't know how he would have to, but do you believe that he will eventually bring that sanctions bill to a vote on the floor of the Senate, or is he just going to continue to operate as the puppet of Barack Obama?
Well, I'd be very surprised if he allows the bill to come to a vote on the floor, because I think it would pass, and then you'd confront Obama with the necessity to veto it, which I think he would. So I understand that Senator Reid has committed to allow the bill to come to a floor vote. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, all right, let me ask you one more question. Somalia, I understand there were reports, although nobody's confirmed the identity, that we killed the terrorist that we were looking for when the SEALs went in and then had a retreat a couple of months ago, and I know you and I talked about that unfortunate instance. So, what is our policy, do you believe, with regard to Somalia?
Well, I think this is a case of finishing up something that we started before, but I think the overall level of our operations there really is down, and I think that the threat from al-Shabaab, the threat of the pirates, is just in remission for a short time, if you will. I think al-Qaeda and terrorism generally are growing. I think the pirates, in effect, were in league with the Somali terrorists. It's a good source of revenue, and I think it's another example of how the the war on terror has continued to metastasize and threatens us in a variety of ways all across Africa and the Middle East.
Mr. Ambassador, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Glad to be with you again. Have a good day.
My pleasure. That's Ambassador John Bolton, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm sorry we didn't have that audio for you and video for you on the Department of Homeland Security Chief Johnson. He was speaking January 24th at the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Washington, D.C., just saying that illegals have earned the right to be citizens. And when you say, and I'm quoting here, according to a piece from CNSnews.com. We always like to give credit to them when they provide us with information. It is also, frankly, in my judgment, a matter of who we are as Americans, he said, to offer the opportunity to those who want to be citizens, who've earned the right to be citizens, who are present in this country, many of whom came here as children, the opportunity that we have had. But how on earth does someone, you want to talk about children, that's a different story. I don't agree with it, is that he's advocating for open borders. What does citizenship mean anymore? If you're telling me people could break the law and come into this country and they've earned the right, let me get they've earned the right to be citizens. Based on what? Based on what have they earned the right to be citizens? I mean, you could say you feel they deserve it. You could say you feel that they should be given a pathway. You could say that you feel that they should be granted immediate amnesty or citizenship. But to say they've earned the right, why? By hiding out illegally? By hiding from law enforcement? And showing that they're good at breaking the law? By sneaking over the border and surviving? And showing that they're skilled at hiding and breaking the law? That's how they earned their citizenship? I would just love someone to fill me in on what on earth. And this, folks, this is not an Obama administration official. This is the head of Homeland Security. This is who Janet Napolitano was. This is how far, I'm not saying that she was up here, but this is how far we've fallen from the original head of Homeland Security under George W. Bush. Can you ever imagine in your wildest nightmares someone in the Bush administration or a Homeland Security official, the head of Homeland Security for the United States of America, saying illegals have earned citizenship? Earned it. It's sad and it's scary, and we cannot survive as a nation. This administration still has 3 more years to go. And we have a president who has been acting as an imperial president and threatens to act more so as an imperial president. The Republicans will take the Senate. And after they take the Senate, they have one way to stop this administration in its tracks. And it begins with the letter I. Aye, aye, sir. On the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.